exactly happened with this Mission Impossible movie, y'all? What's up, you guys? It's Jonathan Carter, and today we are in our 7th and last Road to Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning episode. We are covering Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. Technically titled Dead Reckoning Part 1, but they've kind of dropped that in the title of the movie or all the marketing of the movie, so it is known as Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. Like I just said, this is a part 1 of a part 2. The part 2 part of the series, or this film, has now been retitled to The Final Reckoning, which is the entry that is coming out next week. The final, or some are saying like the final entry for Tom Cruise potentially in the Mission Impossible series. That makes sense. This has been going on for like almost 30 years. The first Mission Impossible came out in 1996. So as we jump into this, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on TikTok, Instagram, Spotify for podcast versions of these reviews, and Instagram and TikTok for shorter versions of reviews. This has definitely been a journey reviewing every single Mission Impossible movie, all 7 of them leading up to The Final Reckoning coming out next week. And I can't say it's been the most fun journey, unfortunately. So going into this, like I've said in every other video, I had seen 3 Mission Impossible movies before I got into going through this series. Mission Impossible 3, Ghost Protocol, and Fallout. Those 3 movies I did enjoy like more and more as they went on. But I was like really excited and curious to jump into, like, fully dive into this series before this next one comes out, especially now that I have this channel and can do something like this in this format. And in all honesty, I mean, I knew that Fallout was amazing. And last video, I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. And starting this series, I was very curious to watch the first movie to see like how it all started, and to watch Dead Reckoning, because Dead Reckoning got so much, like so many like critically raved type of reviews, like so many people loved it. And its theatrical experience was a little weird. I didn't see it in theaters, obviously, but it came out like right before Barbenheimer, right before Barbie and Oppenheimer, so that whole like thing that happened in summer of 2023, that whole like cultural phenomenon thing, and then Oppenheimer took all of the IMAX screens away from Dead Reckoning, so it kind of got cut short in its theatrical run, but I also don't think it was all that popular. That being said, we have finally reached the last episode of this series. I can finally watch the last Mission Impossible movie that I've been wanting to watch. And without further ado, let's jump into the review. So like I said right at the beginning of the video, I don't know what happened here, you guys. This might be a hot take. I'm gonna say something crazy. This is a massive step down from Mission Impossible Fallout. Like, the gap between entries, the drop is kind of insane. Like, to me, Dead Reckoning is nowhere near those like critically raving reviews that it got when it came out. And it, all honestly, like watching this movie, I was kind of bored, you guys. Like, I was literally like, would pause and look on my phone to be like, does anybody else not like Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning? Like, I was kind of confused on what exactly was happening. So let me explain. Mission Impossible Fallout has been my favorite of the series so far. And everything in that movie was borderline perfect. Like I said in my review, that they found what exactly worked in each entry of the Mission Impossible movies leading up to Fallout, and they put all of the good stuff in Fallout and trimmed off all of the bad stuff. Dead Reckoning almost feels like the opposite of Fallout, of like what they did in the script of the movie. So it's no surprise, or it's no secret, that Dead Reckoning was filmed like in the height of COVID, so you can't really blame the movie for how it feels, but it also does, the way the movie is shot, it does really take you out of the film, because there's not much like happening in this movie outside of the main cast. And by that I mean, I should rephrase it, there's not much surrounding the main cast. There's not many people. There's like, besides Tom Cruise and his IMF team, Benji, Ilsa, Luther, and then this newcomer Grace, and the villains, there aren't any other people in this movie really. So it makes it feel very odd. And I know that's not the movie's fault, but like other movies that were shot in COVID handled that problem better. For example, there'll be a second where Ethan will enter a nightclub or something like that, and it'll show some kind of people at the door and everything, or like entering the club, and then immediately he and his team and the villains or whoever he's meeting with are in a VIP lounge. And it's just that. And then it goes to the next scene and they're in another confined room. So there's not... This movie itself, like transitioning between scenes, feels so... It doesn't flow. It just feels so weird. I kept getting lost in what exactly was happening between scenes. Speaking of getting lost, the plot of this movie makes no sense. The plot of this movie covers AI, and I think when you step into using AI, like artificial intelligence, as a villain, you're almost veering into the problem that the MCU is having in their like multiverse saga, because there's so much that you can do with something like AI that if you don't have a tight script, like exactly knowing exactly what you want to do and getting you from point A to point B, it can just feel like so much that the movie has to try and cover, or like the possibilities are endless, and that can be good, but it can also be overwhelming and pull you out of the experience, because you're like, if anything can happen, like what's the point? What exactly is the threat here?
Not a great plan.
So in this story, Ethan and his IMF agents team are hunting down the entity, this AI, artificial intelligence. But there's also, like every other Mission Impossible movie, there's kind of this villain behind the scenes. His name is Gabriel. And this movie does something really weird where instead of using its almost 30-year span of lore, this movie introduces this villain that Tom Cruise's character, somehow had a backstory and knew before the first movie. So like we are extending our lore way back before the first movie even started. Why exactly would you do that? Because now 7 movies in, this feels like a Fast and Furious movie in a sense, and where we're so many movies in and we're adding lore that happened before the first film that came out in 1996. Why would you do that? You have such a plethora of so many avenues and characters that you can pull from in all of these Mission Impossible movies that have spanned almost 30 years. Why not use any of that? Why are we now going further back than the original movie to create this villain is supposed to, like, I don't know, like killed one of Ethan's former agents or agent? Why would you do that? And obviously, like, Ethan and everybody had a life. The IMF existed before the first movie, but why go back even further and just kind of confuse the audience and add this unnecessary lore to Ethan when, like, this is supposed to be a really big villain that hurt him when he was younger and just starting out as an IMF agent or whatever it is, but we don't know him. Like, as the audience, we're just told and showed for 2 seconds in this movie that he killed one of Ethan's friends. And then he's like haunted Ethan his whole life, essentially, kind of. Okay, why did nobody talk about that in any of the previous 6 Mission Impossible movies? Like, that is such an odd storyline to go with when you have this super expansive narrative where you could just pluck a character out of one of the first 2 movies or the third movie or something and bring them back as this villain. Like, why would you do this other thing? It's also no secret that this movie kills off Ilsa, which I think is a very, very odd choice to do. And kind of, especially coming off of the ending of Fallout, like, that's very infuriating. Who knows, maybe Ilsa will come back in part 2, or sorry, the Final Reckoning. But it also, the narrative replaces Ilsa with this character, Grace, played by Hayley Atwell, who, I like that actress, and she's great. Like, she's been in the MCU, she was in a great episode of Black Mirror. But her character just doesn't mean anything. And this movie pairs her up with Ethan for majority of Ethan's action scenes. And so, again, same thing, problem with this villain. Why are we having these big action scenes with Ethan and there's this new character that we have never seen before, which is totally fine, but like everybody else, Benji, Luther, Ilsa, obviously, they get sidelined so hard in this movie, and I don't know why this film did that. Like I'm saying, everything from Fallout is just such a step down, and this movie makes such odd choices where you'll have like the tense, car high-speed chase scene that's in like all of these later Mission Impossible movies, and Fallout upped that ante so well with that motorcycle chase scene, but then all of a sudden in this one, they're like Grace and Ethan are being hunted, chased down by the villains and then by the police force, whatever country they're in. And they, like, the movie stops to make a joke instead of like, we're going to take this really nice sports car. No, we're going to take this really small one. Like, okay, sure, whatever. And then they start the car and like Ethan's trying to figure out how to turn off the windshield wipers.
That's really funny.
Where are the villains? Police task force, like, how have they not caught up to them? Why all of a sudden, 7 movies in, are we changing, like, the humor of the Mission Impossible movies? It just felt so, like, especially for it being the same director as Fallout, I was fully taken aback at, like, the steep drop in quality in this movie. Okay, so this movie is 3 hours, basically, 2 hours 45 minutes. Being that long, there's only like 4 different sections or like set pieces of this movie, and it's very odd because like the beginning of the movie, they're in an airport, and then they're in a different country having the high speed chase, and then they're on a train. Like, and that is, or maybe they're in a nightclub, and then they're on a train. And there's really only 4 places these characters are, and I've been reading a lot of reviews saying that because there's only 4 places, there's so much happening that the movie kind of flies by. But I actually felt the opposite, because like all of a sudden these locations and these set pieces that these characters are in are so long, you guys. Like, they are so, the airport section, the high speed chase, the train at the end is so overly long, and this movie could have easily shaved off 45 minutes, and it would have been better for it. Like, it would have been a much more streamlined movie. So, wrapping this up with the verdict, unfortunately, our last Road to episode leading to Mission Impossible Final Reckoning did not end on a high note. I feel kind of crazy feeling this way about Dead Reckoning, especially seeing all the positive reviews, but if you feel the same about it, like as lackluster as I feel on it, put your comments below. Like, let me know your thoughts, please. This was just a massive drop off in quality compared to Fallout, and I would even put it like below Rogue Nation, and I was fine on Rogue Nation. Anyways, just a very weird sidestep in the Mission Impossible series, and now I'm kind of worried for the Final Reckoning, but we'll see how that goes. Anyways, all that being said, I'm gonna give Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning a 6.5 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the movie in the comments. Is this your favorite in the series? Is it your least favorite? Is it somewhere right there in the middle for you? I will put the latest episode of Mission Impossible Fallout right here, and the playlist of all the other Mission Impossible movies over here. Check them out. Thank you guys so much for following along, and as always, I will see you guys on the next one.